Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Hauer Nelson, and this is the Humor in Chaos podcast, episode 1 of season 1, my very first one. I promised that I would get this podcast off and running soon, is what I said back in November. But if any of you know my story, I'm not in the best of health, and winter was very rough on me. So I'm a little late, but here I am, April 2nd, 2025, recording this. And I just want to talk a little bit about what I hope this podcast is about. So, Humor and Chaos is my online moniker that I started using, I don't know how many years ago. I working on getting it trademarked, but I started it way back when in my writings, back in the 20 teens, when I was in bed with a very severe lupus flare. And I was writing for an online publication for people who are going through major chronic illnesses. Hello to you spoonies out there. You know what I'm talking about. And I used the humor and chaos phrase to remind myself that even in the worst of times, there's still reasons for joy and happiness. You know, life continues to go on no matter what it is that we're dealing with. So anyway, things have changed in my life dramatically since then. And well, that's what I want to talk about in this podcast. But what I really want to highlight, hopefully, if I can learn how to edit properly, because so far I haven't got a clue how to edit. My goal with this podcast is to interview other people who have found humor in the chaos of their lives and have found reasons for joy and happiness and gratitude and all that good stuff. So for right now, I've got a cup of tea here. This one is blueberry and lavender with some honey. I'm guessing the brand I have here has colorant in it because even though it's blueberry and lavender, I don't think it's supposed to be this purple. So, but I tell you what, it tastes good and it does wet the mouth nicely. So I can keep talking. Let's see how to start this. So humor and chaos began that way, but it has morphed into something else. Eventually I went into remission and only to discover that my husband at the time was leading a secret double life that I did not know about. And that was only one of many problems that we went through, but that was the worst one, is the day that he walked out the door. That was in 2020. I was going to say May of 2020, but that was kind of the start of him walking out the door. He finally left. September 1st is officially, legally, the date that he left. And then it was a 3-year endurance to the divorce, which was not fun. But anyway, I will be talking about that kind of stuff throughout here and there throughout the podcast, because to try and do one full podcast on everything is enduring is an endurance I don't want to do right now. I just did it again for a podcast. So if you really want to hear more of the full story, Lisa Andrea has a podcast she just put out. Well, she's had her podcast for a while, but the episode she just put out is of me telling my story. And Lisa Andrea is a wonderful life coach. Her podcast is called Ladies Who Leap. So I recommend you check it out. She's wonderful. But that is definitely more of my story. And of course, I will be discussing it here and there as I go. But anyway, during the time that I was bedridden, which started around 2012, 2013, I got diagnosed back then with systemic lupus, which I'd been sick off and on my whole life. which is why I didn't get my podcast out all winter because I flared. And I got strep throat. Anyway, what was I saying? Lupus, brain fog, fun stuff. Anyway, so during those years that I was in bed, and I was bedridden for the better part of 8 years, I took to writing not only the articles, but I also was writing some short novels. They are novels, they're just barely the length of novels. I put out 2 during that period of time, and you can find them on my website. My website is www.humorinchaos.com. Imagine that. And um, self-published. I wasn't expecting them to go crazy with sales or anything like that. I was literally just needing something to do lying in bed. There's nothing more boring than just lying in bed. You can only watch TV for so long before you lose your mind. I'm sorry, but it's true for people who are like, gotta watch TV, gotta watch. You can only watch TV for so long. And I had to do something. So I asked my then husband to get me a laptop, which he was kind enough to do. And I started writing, and then he took what I wrote and he published them. And then when he left, I started a blog, which is how my website came about. My tech daughter created a website, and that's when I also wrote my 3rd novel, which is called Power of Ketchup. It is not a cookbook, and it is not a children's book. It's very much an adult book. So remember that if you look it up. And so that all happened. Where you want to go with that, I don't know. But during the time of the separation, when it first happened, when he first left, I was an absolute gigantic wreck, even though I also had just discovered that I was in remission. And so even during the time of separation and the divorce, I also had a great time. I made the most of my time in remission. I really kind of lived it up, and it was great. I felt good. I looked good. It was wonderful. And I was living in north of Los Angeles at that time. Beautiful weather there. Yeah, I know it's incredibly expensive to live there, which is true. But man, the weather is great and the people are great, contrary to what a lot of people think from other states. People are wonderful. And not that they're not wonderful other places. I'm in another place. And but because of the high cost of everything and loss of medical insurance with the divorce, and knowing that my lupus was trying to come back, I ended up moving to Idaho. So now I'm in Idaho. And originally I was in Minnesota. So I'm normally a Minnesotan. So if my Minnesotan comes out, I'm sorry. I did a pretty good job of quelling it when I was in California, but that didn't last. Anyway, I have a tendency to talk and go off into tangents and get off base. But what is the point of this podcast? As I said, I want to highlight and interview other people who have found out ways to still be joyful in their lives despite or after what they are going through or have gone through. And the last book that I self-published is comes from my blog series. So the blog series is quite long. I've actually published on there a number of blogs. And yes, I know I'm kind of stammering and stuttering a little bit. That's okay. I have lupus and I can't fight the brain fog. Finding words between the lupus and the menopause, this is actually a really good day. There could be other times I'll be on here which will not be this clear. There'll be times I'll be like, what's the word? That actually still might happen today. But anyway, I have the blog series in Humor and Chaos. And in that blog series, I have a side series called Searching for Joy. And that blog series is specific to lessons that I learned on my divorce journey. And I never know where to look on this thing. I'll get better over time. I don't know how to edit. I'm not going to try to edit this thing. I'm just going to publish this thing as it is because I do not know how to edit. And I have been begging, especially my adult children, to teach me how to edit, but they're all far away from me. And it's too hard to do it that way, but I will eventually figure it out. I'm not one to give up. That I don't do. I don't give up very easily. Anyway, I took the Searching for Joy series and I put it together in a book, which is aptly entitled Humor and Chaos, Searching for Joy. And that's me right there. And so the other thing I want to do with this podcast is I want to talk about the lessons. So each chapter is essentially, for the most part, it's my lessons and my experiences on my search for joy. And I don't list them out directly what the lessons were. Like, for example, this chapter, I don't say chapter, I say blog post 9. You know, this one is entitled Dogs, Cats, and Bears, oh my. I mean, but it's actually a lesson in here that I learned. And there's quite a few of them. So that's what I want to focus on is how it is that I've gotten through and put my life back together because it was an absolute disaster. And even though I don't want to talk about my story again, and I pointed out Lisa Andrea's blog post, I know my kids are going to say, because they've said this, especially my daughter has said to me many times, Mom, not everybody knows your story. You still have to tell it. So I'm just going to give it just a real fast. So I met my ex-husband in high school and almost fell in love with him instantly, but not quite. We started dating after he graduated and I still had a year left. We got married a couple years after that. We had our first child a couple of years, 2.5 years after that. We have a total of 3 children. They are all grown up now. We have 3 grandchildren, and I love being a grandmother. Grandmother is the best. And I got terribly sick with each child, which is kind of ironic because my youngest is adopted. And I had a lupus flare with each one of them, got extremely ill, but never got diagnosed. Doctors couldn't figure out what the heck was wrong with me, but I got extremely ill with all 3 of them, especially the first one. And anyway, time went on and we were, as a family, we were the victims of a crime, and I'm not going to go into the crime details. And I'm trying to make this much briefer than Lisa's podcast episode on me. Weird thing to say. Because I don't like that much attention on myself. I know people think, well, you have all this out there, you like attention. I actually don't like attention. I want other people to just learn from my experience. That's what I want. And other people's experiences. I just want all of us as a whole to do better. Anyway, so then, yeah, we were the victim of crime. I'm not going to go into the details because my entire family was just devastated by that. And, you know, it's painful for all of them, especially my ex-husband. And we just don't need to go into that. Then we moved from Minnesota to California to start over again. And that was during the housing bubble crisis. And financially, we lost our shirts. So we had to rebuild from the ground up, really. And, you know, a year into the move or after the move, and we were doing great. Things were just wonderful. And then I had a massive headache that would not go away. And so the next morning, after having it all the previous day and all night and trying to treat it like I normally treated my headaches, and it just wasn't happening, I had my then husband take me in to the doctor, urgent care, who sent me to emergency, who sent me into the hospital because they discovered that I had no platelets, and I was essentially very slowly internally bleeding, sort of, kind of, with what was happening, but it was just very slight. But it was enough that it was causing this headache and causing problems. And They dosed me up with a ton of steroids, which then started the pain. I did not have the intense physical pain until the steroids. It's amazing because, people talk, us in the Spoonie community, we talk about prednisone being God's Tic Tacs. That's what they are. They help and they hurt. And that was my experience. They help and they hurt and it sucked. And I was sick for many years, and then at some point I'd gone into remission, but we didn't know that I got into remission because having been in bed for so long and not really able to get up and move and do stuff, put out my back. So I moved from lupus flare for a good 8 years into severe back problems, which caused a whole nother round of severe pain all over the place. And I needed back surgery, but nobody wanted to do the back surgery because of the blood disorders that I had from lupus, because that's what the lupus mainly attacked in me was my platelets, so I would bleed. And I'm getting more deeper than I wanted to. And so anyway, at some point I had gone into remission. But when my then husband finally got a surgeon to do the surgery on me, and I did bleed out on the table. I did, but he did it. He got me, that doctor got me through it, and, you know, I was good. It was good. I know a lot of people are like, don't do back surgery. I'm telling you, you can't do that as a swath across everybody, because without that back surgery, um, I don't know that I'd be alive today. And, it was that bad. Now, will I probably have more back pains in the future? Yeah, that's a pretty good chance. Hopefully I don't. Hopefully I can keep my body strong enough that it does not happen. I mean, got to continue to walk and do your exercises and stretches, and you got to be aware and take care of the body. And that's what I do. And for the lupus, but look, the lupus came back. But when I got better from the back surgery, or as I was improving, that's when I had D-Day, Discovery Day, in May of 2020, and discovered my then husband's secret life. And that, of all the things that happened to me, him leaving was the absolute worst thing that's ever happened to me to this day in my life, to this point in my life. And I'll never say never. I'll never say, well, that will be for, I don't know. Nobody can, I mean, I never imagined he would ever leave. Never imagined, but he did. And so, I had to deal with that. And I didn't know how to deal with that. So that's just life. And that's what I had to figure out. So I ended up calling an organization called Marriage Helper, marriagehelper.com. I strongly recommend them. And they really helped me. I got a coach from there, and he helped me tremendously. He taught me how to pull my life apart into pieces and examine every part of my life. And that's what I did. And unfortunately, the divorce did have to happen. That was the ultimate conclusion that I came to. I was not going to be the one to start the divorce. He did. And I, to this day, say it's his divorce, not mine. Because I loved him. I loved him very deeply, and I don't make a secret about that. I always loved him from the beginning. I never didn't love him. And that is, I'm a Christian woman, and as far as I'm concerned, the fact that I will always have some level of love for him forever, I've accepted that's my cross to bear, and I have to live with that. And that's okay, because that does not mean that my life is sad. It's not at all sad. I mean, I got the best of him. I've got so far three children that are wonderful, and so far 3 grandchildren that are just, they're the best thing in the world. Absolutely. And then I went ahead and I got certified as a life coach. I'm a certified life coach. I coach people who have gone through traumas and are looking to rebuild their lives. That is who I who I strive to coach. I'm not looking for people who are still, dealing with it, or, if it's somebody that needs to go in and get counseling and therapy, I will send them. I have sent clients, a couple of them have come back, a couple of them have not, but I have sent people off to therapists or counselors or psychologists. I am not a counselor. I am not a therapist. I am not a psychologist by any means. I'm a certified life coach. So now, of course, a lot of people say, what does that mean? What is the difference? Well, the difference is I am certified. Yes. Okay. So I do have some training, but the difference is I didn't learn this out of a textbook. I have learned it out of books I read. I mean, I read this, I read this, I read this. Okay. And I've got a ton more books, and I've got more in my bedroom. And so, I mean, I study, and there's more, there's more. And I also got certified as an art therapy practitioner. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but what is the difference? Okay. So the difference is that I have walked this journey, and I have specifically done the work to pull apart my life and rebuild it. So my clients, my ideal client is somebody who is ready to pull apart their life and look at it through an honest lens. And for me to be able to walk through that with them and help them along with that. That is my ideal client. And as I said, I also got certified as an art therapy practitioner. Does that mean I'm a good artist? No, I am not formally trained as an artist. I'm bad at art. So what's the point then? The point is that when people do art, when people work on art and they're creative, their mind works in a different, deeper way. And it's just amazing. The feelings that come up that they've been dealing with, but that they've been, pushing down inside of them, come up in a more tolerable way. That's what I want to say. They come up more tolerable. And then you have an opportunity as the client to deal with your emotions without them overwhelming you. Because it's like you're able to take your emotions and put them on whatever the art project is that you're working on. And I can see either what emotions you're dealing with, or I can tell what emotional state you're striving for based on what you do with art. I can tell that based on what medium you choose, if you choose coloring with crayons or paints, or do you use brushes, or do you finger paint? Legos. I have Legos. I actually have Lego. Nobody's used the Legos yet, but I have Legos, and that tells me stuff. What else do I have? I have modeling clay. There's more. Color drawing pencils, and I've got palettes, and I've got the whole 9 yards. So it has absolutely nothing to do with artistic ability. It's just about doing. One of the healthiest things people can do to heal from emotional trauma is create. Just create. And I've got my own creations with the stuff that I'm going through for all these years. They're all over my apartment, and you can see, and I can point out to you, why I painted this and why I painted that. They're not good. Let me, I'll show you. Okay, there's one right there. That, that's not that. And somebody I know will say, that's a good paint. But it doesn't have to be. It's not about being good. It's about the statement of my mental state at the time that I created it. That's what it's about. So, is there anything else I should say at this time? So I'm going to go through my book slowly over time with this, and just take it a blog post at a time, or a chapter at a time, however you want to say. And right now I'm just in the hello. And yeah, I'm just really hoping that, as I say right here in my book, my hope in publishing these blog posts of mine is to give comfort to anyone else going through, well, I'm not going to continue to quote it because I'm kind of broadening it from this, but people who've gone through stuff and they're looking for, hey, you know what? There's reasons for life. And that's the truth. There's reasons for life. Life is wonderful. And there's no reason to sit in despair. There isn't. There's cause for joy, there's cause for happiness. And yeah, so maybe you'll take this journey with me and with the people that I interview. And we'll see how things go. Anyway, as I said, this is the Humor and Chaos podcast, and this is the very first episode. I don't really know what I'm doing yet. I will get better over time. And I'm going to start with YouTube. I'm just going to start with YouTube, and we'll see where it goes from there. I want to get it onto Podbean and some other podcasting platforms. Do you like how I put on my glasses? Now, see, notice when I was talking about myself, I took my glasses off, but now when I'm talking about actual work, on come the glasses. So that's a normal human thing to do. If you have any questions, send me an email at no, not, that's the website. Never mind. Send me an email at humorinchaos@gmail.com. I'll put both the website and my email address on there. And if you or anyone you know wants to be on the podcast because you have found a way to have joy in your life after going through some seriously tough times, whether it's health, divorce, somebody passed that you just love deeply, crime victimization, whatever it is, you've been at what you think is your lowest point and you found a way to come back out of it. I want to talk to you. I want to talk to you about your journey and how you found a way to be happy again or have joy in your life again. And I'm also going to talk about the difference between joy and happiness in my book, as far as my research has shown. So, okay. I think that's it. Stay tuned. Bye-bye.